Good. What are you solving? Are you solving something?
No.
One of the children I was saying, I don't know how it came up, but I was saying to be open and empty is to not have a question or an answer. Maybe that's a very simple way of putting it. We are constantly in this Q&A in our heads, solving non-existent problems.
So if I can start some.
Yes, please.
I guess for last 2-3 weeks or your sessions, the theme is more on surrender.
Yes.
And so my mind is playing this, it's questioning and answering. So there are, when you talked about jumping from the flight and faith or leap of faith, and without having any safety net. So at one end, my mind is saying that I haven't done anything great like that yet. At the same time, it's also saying that I have nothing else to do, nothing more to do. So keeps on, not the validation of awareness here, it's more about, is there any test I can take for my surrender or something? That is, it's playing that, am I right, am I wrong? There's something. कुछ करने को भी नहीं है, but कुछ किया भी नहीं है.
Correct.
You're liking that or you're liking my question?
To be honest, I love blueberries. But don't worry, I did hear the question.
So when you said, when you talked about giving this life or even jumping or take this flight which is going thrice a week, it seems like a very phenomenal activity which we'll have to do at some point to cross the line. I don't see anything I have done. At the same time, I don't know what else. The same, I think one more question shook me is like, and one of you asked that, what can you not give me as a Guru Dakshina? What can you not give me as a Guru Dakshina? Those are all your blocks. There are a lot of lists in mind. So if you ask me to come and stay here from tomorrow, I don't know if I'm ready for it. So now I can spot those things.
What is?
Not about the career and all, but yeah, it's more on the attachment to family and kids around that. And yeah, not fear of not losing them, but fear of no entry behind, no going back. Sort of fear.
Yes.
And also in normal day-to-day life also, I feel the resistance from more than let's say, more than why do I get into any conflict with the nearby people too. Let's say I give up my so it's like rather than let's say if I have to come here, right? And if I have to take my kids to some tuition class or something, I easily give up Satsang over there. Because if I have to give up that and take this, I have to answer many people rather than that. Rather than answering people, making other arrangements, asking my wife to take, let me listen to it when it comes to you. So that questions of surrender, non-surrender keeps on bothering, but I don't know where.
Thank you. This is Like these are the topics we've been speaking about, and it's important to answer these questions. So you know that I've been speaking of this sort of comfortable spirituality, armchair spirituality, and how I've been ranting against that for the last few weeks. And of course, it is some kind of grace, because a few years back, if you came to Satsang, then most of the effort, and it seemed like a difficult project, to come to a moment of true insight about who you are. You see, that seemed to be the difficult project. Like, why can't I see that I am awareness? You see? Or I don't know if my being is here. These kind of things. Now, somehow, through God's grace, that part seems quite fairly sorted for most of you. You see? So, non-perceptual looking, non-conceptual insight, all of these terms don't seem to be confusing, and you seem to all be very naturally recognizing, having the insight, which strangely is the more difficult part of spirituality usually. So people say that once you are surrendered enough or devoted enough or have enough trust and have enough faith, then you will get a insight into the self. Then you will come to the darshan of the self. See? Now, as with all ways of consciousness, there is no set template. So somehow I feel like I'm getting the sense that the insight into what you really are is quite straightforward now for most of you. It's quite straightforward now. There are enough tools, enough questions, enough inquiries. You see? But the leaving of the false conditioning of yourself as a person, although having the insight helps that, you see, I feel like somewhere we have found a way to include that availability of beingness and the self into a personal mode of operation. You see? So we found a way to include that, or the mind has found a way to include that, saying, oh, now every time I get a bit shaken, I can go to my being, I can go to God, I can go to awareness, you see, and then that helps me. But this me is being perpetuated by means of lack of surrender more than the absence of insight. You see? So ultimately it is not two different things. But because we make an experience out of the moment of insight, and then we say, okay, now that is always available, now this can help my life. You see? So we don't remain in the insight, we don't remain open and empty. And we don't remain open and empty because of the things we still feel like we own or we need to do, you see, or that belong to us. And we found a very convenient sort of Advaita, you see, which we can go back to any time. Click. You see? So run after the world. Anytime some pressure comes, am I aware? I'm fine. You see? So it's still sort of preserving a meanness in the and including the ability to come to the insight in the way of life. You see? Whereas the way of life itself must change. You see? It is not that we had a way of life and now additionally to what we knew, we have the ability to go to awareness or to recognize awareness, but we have to switch over from the way of the head to the way of the heart. So that is the intention and the fire behind all of this, if we can say such a thing. So now, like you said, in the way of the heart, there are two aspects. In fact, I said that I want to speak this way, and I saw the title of the previous recording which Kesha has put already says the way of the heart is the way of insight and the way of faith. It is not nothing new that I'm saying. It is exactly what Bhagavan also told us, that bhakti and jnana are part of this spirituality. So exactly the same thing. So I'm using the word faith rather than the word devotion, and I will maybe dive into more why I'm saying faith and not devotion a bit later. So if this is the way of the heart, because neither the intuitive insight can happen nor the giving up on selfishness can happen unless you're in the heart. You see? So both are the heart. Clear? Like you cannot use any worldly means to recognize yourself. Where are you?
Yeah.
So you cannot use any worldly mechanisms, you cannot use perception, conceptualization to come to the discovery of the self. This part I feel like is well settled for most of you, and if some of the newer ones have questions about this, I'm happy to dive in deeper into this as well. But really, when I say to you, are you aware now? Your recognition is not perceptual. You don't perceive that awareness. You see? And therefore, in a way, it is an act of faith to confirm yes. Even this to confirm yes is an act of faith, isn't it? Because it's not rational. Why are you saying yes?
I would say I'm saying yes because it's obvious, not because I have faith.
Yes, but okay, so if we say that faith is that which is beyond reason, you see?
Yes.
Faith is that which is beyond reason. Now, this obviousness, you see, is beyond reason already. Because if it was reasonable, then you would say, what did you see?
Yeah.
Nothing. You see, where is it located? Was there any necessary byproduct to this? No. You see? So, as far as rationality and the world is concerned, you are just fooling yourself. As far as the world is concerned, we are all just fooling ourselves. You see? What aware? How did you see? How did you see? Did you see? No. You see without sight. No. So you saw without sight, that itself is absurd. So to give acceptance to absurdity, and for years, why did we go through that process where we were like, but I don't see anything. What are you talking about? We went through that, no? Because we were expecting it to be a rational or a perceivable insight. With me? Okay? So already we are going beyond reason when we say, yes, I am aware. Yes. We are going beyond perception, going beyond reason when we say that I am aware. So because this is not provable to the world, there is no empirical evidence which you can use and say, that's my proof. So this obviousness is an important route out of Maya. So route out of Maya, because there is no explanation for this. Can you explain how you are aware? In what way are you aware? Can you explain? So for a long time I used to say, how do you know you are aware? And you used to say, I just do. But how? Is it? So now I would like to believe that you've transcended the how. You see? You've transcended the how. Not obsessed with the how. Right? So anybody who transcends the how is not being rational. Is being full of faith. You see? I just am. I just am. You see? So this itself is full faith that beyond reasoning, beyond concept, I am aware and it is apparent. And I don't value my mind's doubts more than I value my heart seeing. I don't value my mind's doubts as much as I value my heart seeing. So this insight is palpable, it is in a way tangible without being perceivable. So so beautiful already. Then when you look at the presence of God or God's light, say, can you stop being? And you'll notice a qualitative difference in the question, although ultimately even the word qualitative doesn't do justice, because you're comparing the primordial vibration with that which is beyond even the primordial. And that is what I'm using the word qualitative difference for. But even this will not make sense to the mind. Because if it is just language, comparing the non-qualitative with the primordial, this sounds so academic and philosophical. But it's your tasted inside. Your being is palpable in a different way than your awareness is. Yes or no? You see? And again, you are not perceiving it. Although you may be perceiving the byproduct of your being. You see? So you may perceive the byproduct of your being. But when I say, is your being everywhere or somewhere? You see? You say everywhere, and yet what you are perceiving is somewhere. Stay with me on this one, it's a bit subtle. I say, can you stop being? What do you find? That I am. I am. Now I say, is that I amness somewhere or everywhere? Or beyond awareness? Whatever. Huh?
That feels neutral there.
It's beyond awareness. You can't say it's there, here. But it has no boundary, it has no location. So awareness does not apply. And yet, in the perception of the vibration, you may feel like it's in the heart area or the head area or around you or whatever that perception is, it doesn't matter. You see? So what is the dichotomy there? What you're seeing, with me? So what you're seeing is limited, is perceivable, but that is the first byproduct, you see, of your being, which is beyond space. You see, you cannot perceive an everywhereness or a nowhereness. No? Can you perceive it? So although when I ask you, can you stop being? You see, you may recognize something perceivable. You may recognize something perceivable that confirms the presence, like I experience like a subtle vibration in my heart or a certain very subtle sense of existence. You see? And yet if I ask you, where is your being? Nobody says, oh, it's there, that tiny vibration. It's everywhere. And you may say, like I say often, it is experienced as if the core of it is palpable in my heart. You see? But you may have an experience where you don't have the experience of a core of it. So, you may say that this is the perception at the core of it. So I may say that my being emanates from my heart. See? But that's a bit poetic and not true. Because although the experience of it may seem like the experience of it is in the heart, it is not restricted to the heart. Otherwise I would say my being is just a small light in my heart. So, and yet when you come to the recognition, you say being is everywhere. How this dichotomy then? First you started off by saying, I can't find my being. Then I said, don't try to find it, try to stop being. Then when you tried to stop being, something became apparent. Isn't it? Something became apparent, and that something was perceivable. You see, like very primordially perceivable, like a very subtle vibration, a very subtle light, a very subtle something, aura. This presence is here. See? This presence is here. Say, where is it? I can't find a boundary. But what you perceived, you cannot say you cannot find a boundary. Like every perception has a boundary. You see? So that is how you are using your intuition primarily, even in the discovery of your being. Reconnecting.
Well, there's a statement about being everywhere.
Yes.
Can't reconcile that. In checking, there's the letting go of separating objects. You, me, this, that. There's whatever perception and the awareness of perception. So
Yeah.
if you let go of that separation itself, it's like it's happening together. So the awareness and the perception.
Just try to find the boundary to your being.
There is it. You have to create a.
So anything that you know to be boundaryless, which is not everywhere.
Okay. See. That's
So you may say that, okay, I don't find a boundary to space. You say, the space is everywhere. You see, so everywhere, the way we use everywhere is to say that it is boundaryless, boundless. It is boundless. You see, but the boundlessness of it is not perceivable. So already again, this is an act of faith then. Because although what you're perceiving may be like a subtle vibration which you may be able to locate in your heart or head or around your body or somewhere in the world, you see? But what you're saying is no boundary. You see? So again, your mouth is not matching your head. Already the affirmation of your reality, which is unperceivable, is an act of faith. The affirmation of the birthless and boundaryless nature of your being is an affirmation of faith. You see, because none of these things are rational. Say.
Can I ask again?
Of course.
If you mean with faith to the truth of your recognition, so it's not a recognition, not a conceptual recognition, not a perceptual recognition.
Exactly.
Then it's clear.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, for now, and we'll dive into this on the second part of the way of faith. But for now, I am calling faith that which is not rational and that which is not perceivable, and yet we affirm. Okay? And
The same way like you say, how do you know it's you? Like when you ask this question, how do you know this is you?
yes,
But you don't really see it.
exactly.
This being thing, I get all mixed up. So this, like how I just know it's me, like seeing, nobody needs to teach me that. Is that what do you
Yes.
what do you refer
Yes.
to as being?
Yeah, of course.
No, I'm just clarifying that.
So, it is a I woke up. No? Nobody has to teach us that this is our being or I. It's natural, I woke up. That's being.
Father, the boundlessness of it
Yes.
also, no? It's, even though it can be perceived like the way you say, in the heart, like how I perceive, my being, but still it can be perceived, the boundlessness, or is it just...
So, tell me about the perceivability of it. What color is it?
No, there is no
No color. Then perception needs one quality at least.
but it's still known. It's
This is what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying. So the boundlessness of being is not perceived, is it?
not as any quality per se, but it's
Then what perception is it? I'm prodding. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying.
no, there's no perception. Yeah, I felt like because I see, I know it, and
Yeah.
like I could,
Just like you know yourself.
yeah,
Just like you know it is you that is aware.
yeah.
You see? So this is again a knowing which is beyond reason. A knowing which is beyond reason and beyond perception. Basically beyond concept and beyond perception. And to take that knowing to be a reality is what I'm calling an act of faith. You see? Otherwise, we usually used to saying, no, but I can't confirm it in the head. So, you see, unless I know it in my head or I know it like a perception, I cannot say that something is true.
Father, what is apparent is an act of faith.
Yeah. What is apparent is a insight. To take that to be your reality is an act of faith. So what is apparent is apparent. Yeah? Who are you? I am that is an act of faith. You see? So it trusts that insight more than it trusts the judgment from the head. Or the head which is saying, but I need to be able to perceive it. So, and that is why in satsang, the insight is there with everyone. I say, are you aware now? Everyone comes to it. You see? I say, who is that? It is I. Although it is already seen, but to accept that is beyond rational means and beyond perceivable means. So that's what I'm calling an act of faith. You see? Now, what happens? In a lot of cases, in most cases, the what about me stuff doesn't end. This is true, but what about me? So now I found it. You see? I found it, which is not true. You see? So it found itself, or it manifesting as beingness found its own source, and it all seems very convoluted. But basically the point is that the cat saw an empty mirror and now says, okay, now will the cat have a better life? It looked in the mirror, it found no cat. You see? But because the habit is so deeply ingrained, the conditioning is so deeply ingrained, how does that? Is that done for me? Does that help me? This is where we get stuck. So, and then the overriding aspect, like an individual without an individual will is not an individual at all. An individual without an individual will is not an individual at all. So, surrender provokes and invites the handing over of that seemingly individual will, which seems to perpetuate even after the insight that there is no individuality. Otherwise, what should happen is the instant you see there is no me, this is finished. And that happens very, very rarely. That happens very, very rarely. But unfortunately, most books are written about that experience. You got enlightened. So what happened? Awakening experience was the same as the freedom. Where an awakening experience was the same as freedom. So we call it enlightenment. So awakening to the truth of what you are, you see, can lead to freedom from false conditioning about yourself. You see? But doesn't always do so instantly. You see, like that? So many have had awakening experiences, and yet the power of conditioning is still there. You see? The power of conditioning is still there. So then what is the antidote to that? And now we looked at all the cultures, all the traditions, and we said to override your idea of individual will and to override it with God's will. So how do I then know what God's will is? So we moved now tracks, we've gone from the way of insight, because, and you can stop me there if you want, because I feel like your being and the self before I am itself is very apparent to you. You see? So now, because conditioning still plays, because ego still lives, and maybe in some cases the spiritual ego becomes even more magnified, you see? It becomes even more magnified after awakening experience, you see? That is why the second wing of this bird is also important to share. So now we're going from the way of insight to the way of faith. So what is the way to surrender? Surrender what to whom? That is the first question. What has to be surrendered to whom?
Whole story, individual embody a story, what's happening to
Yes.
the entire
Yes.
world.
And let's drill down even deeper. So he says the narrative has to go. You see? The narrative has to go. Why doesn't it go? And belief means I am right about that. You see? This is true. Belief means to give trueness to something which is conceptual. That is belief. And trueness means a righteousness about it, a right about, not the way in the world we use righteousness, but I am right about this. So,
And attachment to, like you were saying in one satsang, that why do we keep turning to the mind? It just because, I mean, I really looked also very sincerely here because I felt that, there's so much again attachment to the conceptual outcomes, from the mind. And when that is not given when we turn to the heart, because somewhere it's like, in a very unknown territory, we don't even know
and
what's...
the attachment to the outcome is fundamentally an attachment to being right. So what happens is that we want to be happy that we were right. So,
Can I say so that it is not my business to know what God wants or
yes.
to...
Yes. So, beautiful. So, to not know what God wants and still have no judgments or interpretations or needing some conceptual support is to be open and empty. Isn't it? Just open and empty. Everything is fine. I have no questions and no answers. Okay. But what do you find in life? That for most of us, you will find something which triggers. Triggers an individuality or a need to be right, a need to value something, a need to want a particular outcome alone, a need for your idea about something to be right. You see? So that comes. Then what to do? You see? So we had a flowchart for this where I said, remind yourself to be open and empty. But many times we can't remind ourselves. I mean, it doesn't quote unquote seem to work because we believe it is not working. Then what to do? Then use a pointer. Then use a pointer. Open and empty, the first of course is also a pointer, open and empty, but the pointer could be, am I aware now? Who am I? Was I born? Can I stop being? What is my true nature? Why did Bodhidharma go to the east? Anything. What is the sound of one hand clapping? How did the goose escape the vase? How do I recognize music? Why do I love my children? Any of this question, which is not possible to answer in the head. Even like bringing the image or invoking the image of a form of the Lord that we are attracted to in our heart. So Krishna help me, Father help me. So that unclenches us and we return to the open and empty. And this is fine. Now there are some cases where you will not hand over the branch that the mind is offering you unless you are offered a fresh branch. No. If I am going to give up on this, whatever, conceptually or in my life or whatever, then tell me the other end of this bargain. Other end of, please tell me what is God's will, so then I can hand over my individual will.
Yes, yes.
You see? So then that leads to the way of faith. How can I find God's will? To find my individual will seems very natural. The mind is telling us constantly, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, go here, this is right, this is wrong, he is a good person, he is a bad person. All this stuff is constantly being offered as concepts to define yourself and therefore your will. You see? Now, how to find God's will? If you can be open and empty, unborn, finished. But in some things, we feel like we need to be right unless a more right option is presented to us. Only then, you see, do we let go. We hold on literally for dear life. Do that, being right about something. You see. Now, to take these notions and to burn them in the altar of your heart, you see, is the letting go of your individual will and to have faith in God's will. So already the clue is there. So how do we recognize God's will then? Headlessly. Recognize it headlessly. You cannot go to the same instrument for both. Me, and God, God, God. You see, it's not the same instrument. So when you are headless, that is going to the heart. Okay. So one thing before we dive into the heart and see what is the guidance from God, you cannot retain individual will and be free. You cannot value the non-existent, you cannot value the false and then claim to have truth. So the individual you have seen already doesn't exist. So what is the value of that non-existent one's will? This is the conundrum. Most of you have seen that the individual doesn't exist. You have seen clearly that the individual doesn't exist. And yet when the temptation comes, my way, I have to be right, it still seems tempting. The me doesn't exist. But what about me? How is that helping me? Have I seen that I don't exist clearly enough? This kind of thing. Then form the basis for the continuation of an egoic existence in spite of insight very clearly showing and available what you really are. So, how to confirm that you are headless? Use the way of your insight. Use the way of your insight. It's already there. It's already, that's why I said an affirmation of faith to confirm that you are not existent as a person, that you are aware, is already an affirmation of faith. So to go to your heart, see that the truth of what you are is apparent to you. Or your being is palpable. There is no escaping this because you know when you're fooling yourself and you know when you're not. So, and after this, like most of it, we have a recording from yesterday in terms of what are the tricks, what can the mind trick you, what are the seeming obstacles, how to hear the voice, if you don't hear the voice, how to trust the silence. But maybe just quickly we can do a rundown on this. So, first thing to remember is that if you meet silence, then learn to accept silence as an answer. Don't say God is not answering me, or my heart or my intuition is out of service, it has an out of order board, come back tomorrow. It doesn't happen. That which gives light to the universe does not switch off. Neither is it ever unloving that it doesn't want to give you an answer. But you have to recognize also by now that, especially some of us are parents, so we recognize. Sometimes best not to give an answer. Can I do this? Or come back to me tomorrow. And that non-answer is helpful at that time. So we have to learn to accept that. Because non-conceptualizable truths doesn't always need like conceptual pointers. Sometimes silence, like even the absence of concept, is the best pointer to that. So learn to trust that silence. And then, like Guruji said or Papaji said, I wake up in the morning, and then I find myself in my shoes, and the shoes are deciding where to go. So what is he saying? That you are so open, you don't have an individual will about where you want to go or this is what you should do. That in the play it is organically, in the light of consciousness, just moving. Just like your hearing is happening now, this speaking is happening now. Without any intention to say this is right, this is wrong. Just blurting out in a way, spurting out of the heart in a way. In the same way, all of life can happen. Then what will happen is that there will also be times where you hear it clearly. Not audio necessarily, but it's apparent to you what. You see? But you say, but this can't be right. This can't be right. You're in the first day of your job, and your heart says, just turn back from the parking lot. This can't be right. This must be my ego. But you can smell your ego now. So when it is apparent to you in the heart, you must follow unwaveringly. Unwaveringly. It's not always about quitting jobs. So don't worry. But I was saying that these acts of faith, so Guruji got a sense, he was being offered a job in the village to go and teach. And just in his heart he felt, although he could have continued that easily and then in a couple of years or a few months could have been back in a lifetime comfortable job, he found that his heart was saying, quit, I quit. And if he hadn't quit, then we wouldn't be here. The same way we were saying that Bhagavan felt in his heart that if he's going to die at that moment, he wants to see how that is like. So he lied down in the bed and said, okay, now I want to see my death. Any other kid could have got frightened and gone to the mother and said, please help me, or run to a doctor, or various other things would have happened. But Bhagavan followed his heart, and here we are today, more than 150 years later. So, full of all of this. I was saying also, Christ could have apologized to the priests, the Jewish priests and the Romans, and said, I'm going to stop all of this, don't crucify me. Socrates could have apologized and said, I made a mistake. In fact, when he was sentenced, Socrates, the judges and the people who sentenced him didn't expect him to go through with drinking the poison chalice. They were thinking that we'll find a way, like he had many friends, they find a way for him to escape, or he's going to apologize and we're going to say. But it didn't happen, because Socrates said, how do I know what is better, death or living? So why should I pick? How can I pick? That is Socrates' way. But Jesus, for example, continued to follow the guidance in his heart and wavered just for that one moment. You see, which is great reassurance for all of us. That if the Son of God can waver for a moment, you see, and we have had so many examples in our own culture as well, where every avatar who's come of the Lord has come and inhabited the human condition, they've shown them wavering at least for a few moments. As beautiful reassurance for us that if God Himself, tasting His own Maya, can seem to waver, then we are what we are. So we should never have that kind of arrogance that, oh, we come. So the guidance is ever present, it is ever available. Don't force words onto it when it is silent, but when it speaks, then don't second opinion it with your head. That is really silly, to be guided by the heart and then take that to the head and say, hey, what do you think? Heart is saying, but that doesn't make sense. That's why you need the heart. Because the sensible aspect of your life is very tiny compared to the unreasonable part.
So you are saying that when heart speaks or heart is talking, you will know it.
Yes. Yes.
No doubt.
Yes. You may have a doubt, in the sense your head may doubt.
Yeah.
You see? And you can go back to the heart again. You can go back. It's not like we may have a picture of some like voice from the skies comes and speaks, and it's not like that. You can have a very sweet sort of connection. You say, is your guidance to whatever. There's nothing wrong in that. So we've already come to a point where we've decided we can't be open and empty. We decided we want some guidance. We decided that our life needs to get something in that way. After all of that, also we are not left abandoned to the mind. So this guidance is available to us in a very, very simple way. But usually once you learn to trust the silence. So it's just like, if it is going to be like, oh, mind, what do you have? Do this. Heart, what do you have? Oh yes, so mind. Because mind does not, heart does not say anything. So no. If your heart is silent, don't decide. That doesn't mean that action is decision. Action can still happen independent of decision. Like, I'm not deciding to say all of this, and yet action is happening. You see, but you don't decide. You remain empty. Don't use it's not an arbitration process. One lawyer says this, one lawyer says that, and you say, no, if the other lawyer is silent, then I will listen to the first lawyer. That is not. Except that silence is a better answer than whatever the mind could be saying, or the guidance is the better answer than whatever the mind could be saying. So that's the crux of it. And many mind tricks and tactics which the mind will use, we've discussed in a lot of detail yesterday. If you can refer to that recording. But if something specific you want to ask, I'm happy to look at it again.
The surrender one, you said, now we know intellectually where to look, what is the one. Again, that surrender is not very clear to me.
So surrender is this. So surrender is to not follow your mind's will, which seems like my will, you see, and always follow God's will. And if God's will is not palpable in words, then it's not palpable in words. If it is available in words, then follow. So then you are faced with the question of risk. See? So I've been saying, because of Kierkegaard, I've been saying, no risk, no faith. No risk, no faith. So then there's a question of risk. So then you can contemplate. So now I say I'm surrendering my life to God, but what are the boundaries of that surrender? What are the boundaries of my surrender? There's a old Meatloaf song. Anybody knows Meatloaf?
Yeah.
What is it? I would do anything for love. I'd run right into hell and back. Like that. I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. So what is that? I won't do that. That's a worthy contemplation. And immediately your Advaita mind will come first and say, no, I am the self. Yeah, everything. Then you have to say, literally, right now. If God's voice came into your heart and said, this, is there hesitation? So, then that creates a fireplace for you. That creates the fireplace for you, and we move away from the armchair spirituality or intellectual spirituality to really testing what our lips can very easily say, oh, my life is now surrendered to my master, my life is now surrendered to the Guru. That is then the fireplace when you determine that I won't do that. Even if Guruji said, even if God said, I won't do that. Now you don't have the excuse that I don't know what God wants. You don't. Now you're in bigger trouble. Because earlier you could claim denial. I just have to go with what I'm perceiving. You see? That's a very nice, beautiful pointer as well. But now we are going a step further. So, is that trust in your individual will, based on faith, or is it based on reason? It may be very reasonable. Do all of this in the right balance. You see? Don't go overboard with God. You have to balance. So if you have to balance God in one hand and ego in the other hand, you must be super God. Who can balance? Who can balance God? You come face to face with the highest being in the universe and you say, I'm going to balance you along with my non-existent ego. That is pure absurdity, although I was calling it reason. It's pure nonsense. That which is running this entire universe, what is our picking of our individual will? That, yeah, he's doing all that. In my life, I know better. You don't even know how to beat your heart. Move your finger. What we know better? If his intelligence stopped, his grace stopped for a moment, finished. So it is just the egoic identity of which all of this forms a central aspect. Because I said the individual without an individual will is not an individual at all. There are no legs to stand on. So many times our rationality or our pretend rationality is just an escape or a running away because to surrender fully feels like death or the great unknown. So we want to retain something about ourselves. See, just in case, I was taking this example the other day. So you come to the edge of the universe. You said you wanted to jump out to beyond time and space. Everybody said that. You want to come to that ultimate reality. Now you come to the edge of the universe, and now you're about to peer out of the edge. You see? And you're like, okay, now I'll stick like a little bit of my head out. But just in case it turns out that that is hell, I will come back. You see? But you can't do that. You have to risk it. You have to risk it. You have all the encouragement. The master is telling you that this is actually hell and you become comfortable in it. So you feel like, yes, this is fine. So I better not get to anything worse. This world is full of hellishness. Our life is full of hellishness. Such a shaky bundle of attachments we are. Little bit happens here, there we go shaking. Is this not hell? Is this heaven to live like this?
So I'll ask you a question with an example.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm in communication with someone. Right? Let's say I'm talking to my colleagues in office.
Yes.
And from heart nothing is coming. So you're saying if I'm using my mind just to communication flow, the communication itself is moving away from the gospel.
When you're open and empty, you can communicate. So the mind says, but without me you can't talk. Like I often get this response in Satsang. I say, okay, without the mind, be headless. Now make a report. Without mind, how can I make a report? It's false. Completely false. The heart can use your mouth. Thank you. So, in fact, you come to satsang because you want to experience this heart-to-mouth communication. You don't come to satsang to meet another mind that you had enough of in your worldly life. You come to satsang to see your own potential to be like this, allowing the heart to use this mouth, use these hands. So the notion that I need to rely on the voice of limitation to communicate is not true.
Is this constant fear that comes up when stories about me? How this guy
Yes.
It's
Yes.
the same thing with me, right?
Yeah.
That's when this it's fears.
Yeah.
All that mind stuff comes up.
Yes.
What is what?
Yes. So, this is the first time something like this I'm observing the words coming up. Something like this is being said. So first you can observe what the mind wants. Then now you can observe what you want in response to what the mind wants. Like I want to expose this is what you want in response to what the mind wants, which is to not be wrong. Now you have to drop both of these, you see, and find out what God wants. That is the. Otherwise, this will is circular. It's both is the mind's will only. But it. You see? So what you want, you have to give up first. What you want, you have to give up first. There is no guarantee that what you want will not be what God wants. You see? But first you have to become open. First you want to become open. Headlessly, if there is silence, then trust the silence. You may pray for guidance, like I was saying, that just allowing yourself to be open, and if you feel in your heart that some words are coming saying, Father, please guide me. I seem to keep returning to the mind for solutions. Please bless me so that I can rely on you, not my limitations. Anything, just spontaneously something may come. But then be open and be patient. If so many thousands and thousands and thousands of words have been spoken in satsang without any decision making and planning and all of that, then why can't there be guidance coming from your heart? It's the same heart. So, God help me, you see, but my will is not surrender. God help me but help me so that I can be free is also not surrender. One of the most important tips is that don't surrender but keep a concern for what the outcome should be. Surrender with one eye open. I give it all to you, God, but I'm keeping an eye on you. Just don't mess it up, okay? Because then I'll take it back. So then, the way of insight is what we started with, and the way of faith is being shared. Like this you are, in the way of the heart. This is freedom. For a while it may seem like oppression actually. It may seem like you're oppressing your will to God's will, and that may seem like it is a kind of a slavery. But it's not. It's freedom from mental slavery. And you're coming to your true heart, your true master, your true Lord. But to the mind it may seem like, but this is not freedom. How can obedience be freedom? Which you were saying. How can obedience be freedom? But obedience to God's will is freedom.
Father, love is such a good supportiveness.
Yes. It is the antidote to fear in some way. Love, trust, all this is faith. Yes, devotion. Why I'm saying faith more than devotion? Because faith sometimes can seem very stark. But devotion always seems a bit like goody.
Devotion feels like still we can compromise.
Yeah, it's just like devotion leaves some room for negotiation. Oh, Kanha mere, sun le please. That kind of stuff. But it's faith, it is. Of course, devotion is a beautiful word, it's a beautiful expression. It's nothing against devotion, but somehow right now I just feel like faith is more apt to what I'm pointing to.
When I look at that, like this thing.
Like this one thing, sorry. Like faith seems very much in line with obedience to God's will. Whereas in terms of the nuance of the word devotion, how we use it may not be like clear. Yeah, same idea?
I was saying when I was comparing this word faith with, like, see, when you stay as the witness even for the moment, it's so undoubtable that you don't need the box of faith or any other word, because it becomes self-obvious that, and the mind or whatever that is saying, it's quite apparent that it's whatever that is in that way, and then suddenly you just say a little more there, and you just say a little more. Also, then our love arises simultaneously in that observe. Sometimes it feels like that witnessing is so stark, but also love starts arrive at joy. I don't know how to say it. It's a coming of itself, not caused by anything. So this obedience, I saw how you explained, when looking at that obedience, it's God's way of taking away this nexus of the idea of the mind wanting freedom.
Yes.
That's it.
This is it. And this we notice in Satsang, we were talking about this the other day also. I'll say, are you aware now? By the time you start looking at it, you'll be like, what works for me better is, what is watching this perception? Like that. So it's just like, when he says, are you aware now? I say, who's witnessing this perception? Because that works better for me. So that specialness, that needing originality, that, feeling that I can add value. So sometimes just like, I'm saying, you follow. You follow. It doesn't need any modification, amplification. It's well tested, tried, experimented with. You see, it's like a French chef, who gets very upset if you say, "Can I have some ketchup?" What?
Okay. So now am I saying this witnessing is the demand for not following what you're saying?
Because in a way, what happens with you is that the way of faith, although is palpable in your heart, you see, your way of the understanding in the pose of the way of the inside tries to override that. See? It says, yes, this like that, because then like this. So like I gave you the
Not
home.
close my head, and I really want
So I'm saying that like I gave you homework, no? That for 1 week don't understand anything.
Correct.
You see? Because that is the way of the head pretending as if it is the way of inside, trying to override the way of faith. What I said is not understandable anyway.
No, but you said that when I see the inside, then I want to override.
No. When you are finding this way of the heart, follow God's will, be obedient.
Yeah.
You see? You're looking for a way why that makes sense to do,
Yeah.
instead of just being obedient.
Yes.
Stop it.
No, but it came in my heart of itself. I didn't have to think of it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to sit and analyze.
Suppose it doesn't make any sense. Still do it because I'm asking you.
I will.
Good, that's good enough for me. Don't want to be the bird who's like a bit lopsided. Like the Gyan part is flapping more and the heart part is flapping less. Or that part overrides this part.
I see that.
So just
Then another aspect is surrender to Guru,
right,
or Guru in body and shape and form.
yes.
Is that like a teaching step for surrender to God? Or
Yes, yeah.
there are many gurus.
Yes, this is an important point. So, the design of Maya is not so that there are elements, a lot of elements in Maya to enable you to transcend Maya. Isn't it? Most things in Maya are meant to get you more attached to Maya, more involved with Maya. Even an aversion is an attachment to Maya. See, even the I don't want this thing to come, this person to come, all of that is to give too much value to Maya. You see? So, in a way, I'm simplifying it by putting it in a metaphor. So, God realized that the Maya He's created for Himself to enjoy itself is too potent that God Himself may forget that, that this is Maya. So, God Himself may become like the Narad who's went for some water but forgot and is now, taking Himself to be limited. You see? So, then in the design of the place, God has put some alarm clocks. The alarm clock is the device that God has put into the dream, which is still connected to God. Still connected to God and rings on God's behalf and not on Maya's behalf.
Could you repeat that?
Yes, so the alarm clock that God is inserted into the play of Maya, works for God and not for Maya, whereas everything else seems to work for Maya itself, to further the attachment of the narratives.
So God has an alarm clock
Yes,
for Himself?
So that represents Him, that represents Him in this play. It's just like my kids, sometimes they start playing Fortnite or some game on the computer. My son may set an alarm on his phone to say, now I played too long, stop it.
Yes.
So God, because He knows the play is made, and I've said already that I'm oversimplifying and it's a metaphor.
It makes Him very human.
Yes, because that's what He's doing, That's what He wants to play with. Like He's not playing as if He's unlimited, because then this play would have no juice. Then what is there? If I always in my heart I realize I'm all there is, all of that, then what is there? I lost my job, I lost my partner, this one happened. There's no money in the bank, I have no clothes to wear. The one I love the most hates me. What is there? I'm all there is. So what is Maya? Maya is the design that God has created for Himself to pretend that all these things are valuable. Otherwise, what is the play? It's like watching a movie that is just like, you can't relate to anybody in the movie. You see?
Or you know the end.
Or you know, just the end is like, it's gonna end. So, there's nothing in that. So that's why the movie has to be what? It has to be relatable. How does it become relatable? There must be a narrative which you can relate to, a story. You see, who's relating to the story? God only. You see, who else is there? It's all consciousness itself. You see? So then we need a bridge between the world and God. You see, because the design of the world is so intricate. You see? So that bridge is the master.
Alarm clock.
The alarm clock is the master, who's really merely just the instrument of your own holy presence, of your own divinity, because that is God. You see, that is the only God. The only God you will ever meet is your Atma. You see? The only God you will ever meet is your Atma. So this one, because we're not used to dealing in intangibles at the moment, we need a seeming tangible alarm clock. So the master comes. To trust the master is to follow the word of God, because the master is a master only because he follows the word of God, or she follows the word of God. So in the interim, provisionally, you need a intermediary, a broker. This is what God wants. Follow this way. This is the way of the heart. Look there. God is there. Because without that, in the mind, we keep looking for more and more mental solutions. You see, it tells you that is the only playground of operation. You see? But this alarm clock comes and says, wake up. There is something else. Wake up. There is something else that you're missing. You're noticing subtly, but then you try to deny it, which is the call of your heart. So when it appears in front of you and says, listen to your heart, you see, it is not some hocus pocus stuff. It is truly a call from heaven, a call from home. Then it seems more relatable, it seems more easy to follow. Otherwise, the mind will constantly attack that yearning, that longing from your heart, and say, no, it's all rubbish. Get a hobby.
So if you cannot go there directly, that's the step where you start surrendering to physical form.
Yes.
Because mind has already started playing that. Why I should surrender to Guru if I can already surrender to God directly?
Yes.
Already.
This is it. Because we used to dealing in name and form. And the mind will oppress you with so much doubt. But truly the outer form of the master is just a broker. Ultimately you don't need the broker. It is about merging with that which you already one with, but it can seem like a merging, and the merging implies a direct relationship. So the only job of the alarm clock is to wake you up to God's call in your heart. To wake you up to God's call in your heart. So, because there are two distinct ways to live in this world. You can live in the way of the head, or you can live in the way of the heart. Everybody is telling you how to live better in the way of the head. Even the so-called self-help is telling you how to better live in the way of the head. How you can become powerful, how you can manifest things, how you can this and you can that. That is all the way of the head. All about the individual, the ego. The way of the heart is to look at the deeper intelligence which you cannot fathom in the head. And yet, it is undeniably calling you in the heart. So you can even come to a satsang like this. It's like, who would come for the absurdity that satsang is? Unless something was calling you in the heart. So the way of satsang, the way of the truth, is not to now become a part of the life of the false. Now, mostly I take myself to be the false one, but I become very oppressed, full of suffering at times. So then I come to satsang like a band-aid. And then with the band-aid with a headache medicine, I feel a bit better for a few hours. See, it is not for that. It is really to change your inner way of life. Your outer way of life may continue on or on. But your inner way of life, your inner reference to what you take to be reality or true changes. The center changes. The center changes in the way of where will you go for truth now? And the truth is a simple question like, what's happening to you? What's happening to you right now? So for a few weeks I was just like, how do you know? How do you know? Everything was, how do you know? Never question me, which voice of truth are you taking to be real? So what is the center of your existence? Is it your head or your heart? The movement from head to heart can seem like a big risk and an act of faith. It has to be that way. It has to be that way. Cannot do this with a safety net. Cannot say, just little bit and see if I like it. What's the weather in my heart? If I like it, I can come back. Not possible. So I am demanding a full switch.
It's a little bit like if mind even wants to go there, but doesn't want to be obedient enough for.
It's not actually designed to want to go there. It can pretend to because it wants to show that it's a friend. Because there it cannot fathom. It's attracted to only things it can fathom. So, what are you willing to risk? Heart at what cost? So, no risk means like heart as long as it's convenient. Noise is convenient. It's a way to get some peace, some joy even. But when it comes to removing me, can't go that far. Can't go that far. What are you safely storing in your locker? In your 3 lockers even.
If I tell you anything,
It becomes part of the satsang.
Then it will carry on. I can laugh.
Not doing a good job, no, otherwise. You cannot fool your heart. You cannot say, and then have a secret locker. Yeah, I think it's a good metaphor.
Swiss bank.
A Swiss bank account. Go to the tax man and say, this is all I've got, check. Yeah. And then you have a secret Swiss bank account.
Guruji, in the normal life, like when you are in a deep shit, and then, if you are able to switch from the
Normal life is.
Exactly. So at that time, if you are able to switch from the mind to the heart,
No, that's a very convenient switch.
that's
Switch
not
now.
surrender. That's not surrender, right?
Switch now. Yeah.
So the one you said you are
दुख में सिमरन सब करे, सुख में करे ना कोई.
Yeah, and the
सुख
other
में
way
सिमरन
around,
जो करे,
when
तो
you are
दुख काहे को हो. He's like, I don't want to listen to what you're saying. You listen to me. Okay, see.
So when you are in a very happy state also, you're full of pride and all those things.
Exactly.
At that time, if you are switching from mind to heart, isn't that a surrender?
That is when you should.
You can't say.
Like now is when you should. That's not even.
But the one you said, Guruji, is about using that as a trump card in back pocket.
Correct.
I know, let me have a beer. I know after that I will be
Correct.
now and open and empty, and then I will be saying, wash everything. That's practical.
It's like I have to go to the Kumbh anyway. So might as well do all the sins I can now.
Yeah, what's the problem?
What's the problem? I'm going to take a dip in the Ganga soon. She's going to wipe me clean. Enjoy.
And that also collaborates with you saying, forget everything what happened in past. Now. I said, okay, when the now comes in future, I'll do it till that time. It's too many games.
Mind is full of games and tactics.
Father, what came to me is the challenge never comes in satsang. When I'm in satsang with you, it's
Yes.
in satsang. It's just you're in full possession of my heart. It's just everything. Just yes. And when it comes afterwards.
After.
The challenge.
Those are good times to contemplate. That is your fireplace.
Yeah.
That is the wood to put in your fire. So find that where you value your will more than God's will. Where you can't even bear to go to your heart because you don't want to see that you could be wrong. Or even where the mind rushes you and says, no, that is obvious. You go to the heart for that. Go. Nothing is too small or too big. Nothing is that small that you have to go to the head for. Nothing is that small that you have to say, oh, this is small enough, my head can handle this. You see? If open and empty can't handle it, then better dive in and ask for guidance from your heart. Don't go to your head. There's nothing that the voice of false can do to make you more truthful. There are no lies that are that small, you see, that you hear hundreds of them and you still claim truthfulness, or even one of them. In the rapture, in the hypnosis of ignorance, you cannot claim self-knowledge. And it is for this reason that a full surrender is demanded, because the mind will have categories. It will say, but for practical life, but for this, but for that. It makes all excuses for life. And you have no excuse because the Ganga is always flowing. Now you can't say I went to the juice bar because the Ganga was closed. I went to juice bar because Ganga Maya had decided to close for a day. So God is always there. He's waiting at your service. Is it? But no, it's okay.
Tomorrow.
Huh?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Oh, this is not worth God's time.
No, it's a smaller one.
It's
I
a
can
small
manage
one.
with my mind.
I
Yes.
can manage. It's like the true doctor sitting in your heart already. You're saying, oh, but this ailment is very small. I can go to the quack. The quack can solve this one. It's literally. And then our protestations about the mind also being God is just like, but he's also wearing the same coat.
Guruji, the conditioning is so strong that you have to switch it from mind to heart knowingly, but other way around, you don't even know mind.
Yeah. The habit is there. The habit is that, but it is not a perpetual habit. It's not a perennial habit. You see, you will come to a naturalness of this where going to the heart, to the head constantly will feel like effort.
What do you do for that?
Just while it feels like it is effort, make it so that it becomes effortless. As you start weight training, to lift like 5 kgs will feel like too much effort. No? But after a few weeks, it's regular.
Yeah, that I can see. It is happening more.
Exactly. But if you say, yes, I know it is right to lift the 5 kgs, but because it will feel like effort, then I won't lift anything. Then you don't build that. Development of trust doesn't happen. One tip I have for you, which may not sound like a tip actually, it may sound scary, is that when you go to the heart, if you're going to expect, then expect things to go badly.
Once again,
Like, if you go to the heart for guidance, if you're going to expect, then expect things to go badly. If you go to the heart and you're empty, it's all fine. It's all fine. You have no expectation. Let thy will be done. But if you go to the heart and you say, oh, now I went to the heart and the heart is going to, fix this for me, no, it may make it worse. What were you calling it that day? Homeopathy? What happens? You said something happens, no? What is it?
First it gets worse and then
What is
Yes,
that? There's a term for that.
The aggravation, the first aggravation.
First is aggravation.
That is a good sign. It means that it works.
Aggravation is a good sign. I like it. You see, otherwise the mind will create this thing for you. Think, see, you went, it doesn't work. It is working.
every day there's aggravation.
Every day.
Vouch for that. Even in Satsang we can
Aggravation, frustration, discomfort, despair, anxiety. It's my job at the moment to create all these things.
If I say something, then you say again you understand. And you aggravate also. I just want to say you aggravate, but somewhere then you make it so loving and some other way that it's not so bad. You know what I'm saying?
So tempted.
No, okay, test is the aggravation. What I experience, you can't take away now. I can say this. Because I experience what you showed me, so how will you take away?
But aggravation is not obligatory.
As long
for
as you
healing.
realize somewhere that my job is not to trouble you, it's your fine.
No, I realize your job is to go on troubling to me.
To trouble you so that, like this doctor,
Yes.
homeopathic doctor.
But I think
If it was like, if you asked this worldly father,
Yeah.
say, let all the tough part be done here, this thing be done here. All of my children, let them have it like candy. But that's not God's will.
No, I think that everyone in their heart truly knows that whatever you're doing is the true way.
Everyone who's here.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, everyone who's here, and the only prayer now is that to keep that understanding alive, because sometimes your mind can become crazy and run away and do all kinds of stuff. So something knows deeply somewhere that it doesn't hate you.
I was talking to this girl, and I could sense that as her head was getting squeezed, there was so much frustration, and she was in tears, and I was almost in tears just looking at her because I was saying that, Father, is there a easier way, that my children don't have to go through this seeming turmoil to come to you? And I didn't have to really, it's apparent that trust, faith is built up through the friction of these, the fire is built up through the stones colliding.
Every time it's gotten aggravated, you always hear that. So that, without saying you know it.
I feel like all the aggravations, all the frustrations, everything we will go through together. You see? But what happens is that what becomes difficult for us to go through together is when you come to a point of specialness. You see? Because that is the Ravan ego, which then everything I'm saying you'll be like, I know. Yeah, I know. So, and it can also be like, so, not like Pankaj is so what, but can also be like, so it's all Maya anyway. So anything you can find a stick to, you see, to throw away what your heart is saying. And then this is the danger of mental Advaita. So what do I need to burn in the fire? Everything is God's will only. So you could say it with a fragrance which I can recognize and say, yes, this is beautiful, or let thy will be done. But it could also be like a mental hiding behind Advaita concepts. So if we get stuck in that mode, we're just like, yeah, Ananta will say, who are you? He will say, just surrender it to God. Yes. I don't need to listen to him. I got this one. But my suggestion would be, wait for me to tell you that you got there. I'm waiting for all of your life to fully explore. So I'm not attached to you being disciples. I'm waiting for you to shine so brightly in the world. So there is no danger to waiting for me to tell you or asking. But when we say, yes, I know. What are the tricks of the mind? There's so many. We should publish that book now. It started off as a booklet, but one of the tricks of the mind is notice that if you're so attached to understanding what is being shared, and also if you're so attached to me understanding you, then we are still playing the wrong playground. Of course, all of you at some point or the other have thrown this tantrum with me saying that I don't understand what you're going through or what's happening with you or whatever. And I don't need to understand because I trust my heart. And in this trust, sometimes it will seem like your throat is getting squeezed. Actually, our intellect is so tiny, it has never understood anything. Never understood anything. Understand light. Yeah. Oh, I can understand it is this equals this much, you see. So understanding an equation about light is not to understand light. To understand the speed of light is this much. Oh, I understand light. Remember, the intellect is a small, tiny, tiny intelligence. That's why we are so easily thrown about in the world. Because our understanding is not built on the right foundation. So when you truly connect to the Master, when you truly connect to God, that is where you start building your life on the right foundation. Otherwise, a building built on foundations which are constantly changing is not a building worth living in. But you can build your house on your heart. You can live your life in the way of the heart with what seems like extreme danger and risk to your head, because none of your securities are promised to you. But it is the only secure way to live. The life spent in obedience to God's will is not an oppressed life, it is the only way to live. It's the best life. Because the alternative intelligence is not worth spending a minute over. And you can see it now. You meet among your friends and neighbors, you meet people, and some of them you see that they're constantly in the head. And you may want to even help them, say you're having a terrible time, but they will not admit it. I'm so happy, what are you talking about? You work on yourself, it's okay. And that's fine too. So beautiful. So just in the way of the heart, then through the way of insight, the way of faith, all these are just provisional terms. You're not creating a structure or something. It's just provisionally shared. But truly then the way of love reveals itself. Because for most of my life what I call love. Love in the absence of God is what? It's just need, it is just desire, it is just desperation, expectation. Love without faith, without God, without your heart is insipid, it is just a label. But with love, you get the courage to take a risk. With love, you feel fearless, you feel courageous. So love then becomes a deepening in God, a deepening in truth. But those who live in the way of the heart must not expect that the sharing of love that involves God will be met with a reciprocation of love. It is very possible that in the world it may be met with hate. The mind hates a deepening in God, and most of the world is full of mind. But those who are in the way of the heart should not get shaken off their journey because of either the fear of hate or the taste of this hate. If the mind hates you, if others around you, their minds also start hating you. It may seem like strong satsang, but it's not bad news. This mind has tried to kill everyone worthwhile.
Yesterday, I was looking at just the way of the heart. It just felt really like I'm feeling my true self all the time. I turn into the mind. It really felt like I'm feeling it. Although I don't know, like it's too strong expression. It seemed like that. And one of the books, Ananta-Part also said,
Yes.
you kill yourself with capital T,
Yes.
capital S, self all the time. At that time, probably I didn't realize the import of those words, but yesterday when I looked, it really felt.
Yes.
But I'm really giving it all.
Yes. And that's why maybe a softer way of saying it, not that softer is better, but it's a softer way that I've been saying it recently, is that the only way you can save yourself is the way of the heart. The only way to save yourself. So we were talking yesterday about this notion of, oh, but I don't have enough time to go to the heart because this has to be done fast. Now the mind rushes you. It says, no, this you can manage. No, there's no time. There's no time. There's always time. Always time. Time is actually in service to God, not the other way around. You see, but if you turn away from God, then the idea that there is no time will seem to be your reality. It sort of reminded me of what we used to say in project management. No? I'm looking at Chaitanya. What is it? If you fail to plan to fail, something like that. You see, so many people would say that no, I have no time for project management and planning. So somebody came up with this nice one. They said, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. So in the same way, if you don't go to your heart, if you say there's no time for that, then you cannot save yourself. The universe that you inhabit changes with the road that you take. The universe that you inhabit changes with the road that you take. When you take the road of your heart, it's a different universe now. If you took the road of your head, it's a different universe then. One turn can change the whole game. But you must take that the right way right now. I took some examples of this. Guruji took the right turn at the right time, and here we are today. Bhagwan took the right turn at the right time, and here we are today. It would be a different universe without that. And don't try to understand the usefulness of it. The usefulness of it, like, how is it changing my life? The Buddha followed his heart, and there are 500 million Buddhists today. I was sharing this example yesterday when Jesus was sharing. Very few followed him, and then the whole population of the world was 200 million at that time. And now there are 2.2 billion Christians in the world. 11 times the population of the world that he came to. Now, at least convey that they follow Christ. So, can you tell the usefulness of your turn towards the heart moment? You never know. Maybe thousands of years later. can definitely know one thing, that none of this was meant to help you. Because that's the wrong game. It's a different game. Let's not call it the wrong game. It's a different game. I realize, like one child, she was taking shots at me, she was saying, oh, but I don't need to understand all of this now. I have a simple method and my life is so much better. I'm so happy. I just took it to my heart and I was saying, so what is this? And it just was so clear that when the attempt is to come to spirituality to help me to have a better life, to become a better something, to become, then that is not what this is. So if the intention constantly is, but what about me, what about me, what about me, what about me, that is bound to feel frustrated constantly in satsang. So why turn to your heart? Not so that it can help the non-existent cat lead a better catty life. Why turn to the heart? Because that is the only truthful way to live. The only way to live with true integrity, with the true foundation of life, that you can even call a life. What is life without God? What is love without God? But God, for my sake, is not spirituality. It's a malintended attempt to exploit God for egoic purposes. Just like we try to exploit most of our relationships. God for my sake is such a absurd notion. God should help me. The truth should help the non-existent one. The moon should help the grain of sand. Truth should shine its light so that the falls become bigger. This is the notion. And unfortunately, most of spirituality has bowed down before these nonsense notions. At least let's not call it spirituality. Or let's call this something else. I'm okay with that. Like all the self-help stuff can take spirituality. Give me a fresh word. So all that stress relief, you won't get a headache ever again, all that stuff, they can take the word spirituality if they want. But I am not spiritual then. God for God's sake, truth for truth's sake. every single day of my life I'm realizing more and more what a privilege it is to even utter the word God. I have the privilege to invoke God. To claim oneness, Advaita with God. What a supreme privilege we have. And after that to say, oh, all that is fine, but what about me? Pure absurdity. And in that way it is God, it is the mind that wins. Because the mind wants to be God, greater than God. So when it can make you believe that God has to assist you and be in service to you, it has achieved that task, even in the most humble sounding request. So it's very different. So when we say, God, please help me, this is God deserves to be God. God's godliness comes because God helps me. That is the understanding of the word. Of what use would be a God if God did not help me? This is the ego's voice. Of course, it is our full right and it's full privilege as God's children to ask Father for help. But to love God because God helps me is a huge misunderstanding. idea what I'm ranting about. What am I talking about? No idea.
God.
God. Hopefully.
That is actually quite absurd, now, Guruji. When we are telling God happily, we are also telling thy wish will not be done.
Yes. Exactly.
Such absurdity. But it's so simple.
Yeah. And as if God needs to be reminded that what is the right way, you know. You may be messing up on the job somewhere, so let me tell you, this is the right way to do it. My way. It's all symptoms of lack of faith.
It's a deep conditioning which you are not aware of.
Yeah. These are blind spots. These are the blind spots which I'm talking about. When I'm saying that my job is to make you uncomfortable, provoke you, invite you into all of this, is so that your blind spots come into view. And we meet the true relationship in our heart.
While praying, so there is still a proclivity to pray.
Yes.
But and ask for help.
Yeah.
But what I noticed is in the recent past, the suggestion that comes to pray that I need it this way has gone.
Very good. Very good. That's the right way to pray. Let thy will be done. Let thy will be done. You see? And that prayer then serves as a reminder to ourselves. So thy will be done. That the reminder moves us away from the head to the heart. From the mistrust of the head, from the rushing of the head, we learn to rest in our heart in this way. So help the brothers and sisters in this world who seem to be oppressed and enslaved by the mind to turn towards their intuition. And follow your heart when it comes to how to do that. That is love. To love one and to not at least gently knock to see if they are willing to turn towards the greater truths. And just be true to your own inside. Don't have to become all fancy. Whatever is so apparent to all of you. In one family group, somebody asked me, my sister-in-law, younger sister Karan's wife, Aarti, she asked me, Bhaiya, are you watching the cricket match? So I said, no, I spent my afternoon in prayer actually. That was the last message on the group for the full day. But in the other group, it was nice. My father-in-law said, I'm very worried about Tina, Garima, because she's traveling so much and tired. So I just told him, because they follow Guru Nanak and Gurudwara and these things. So I just sent him the same words actually that I sent on the group about. So I said, our job actually is very simple. Just follow God's will unwaveringly or something like this, and all is taken care of. And he said very sweet response. He said, lead on, Lord, we will follow. He army man, colonel, retired. Lead on, Lord, and we will follow. Everybody said, nice message. It's not always met with hate, at least outwardly. So I'm learning this lesson also as I'm going along. Otherwise we can operate on a presumption that nobody's interested. But suppose 1 in a million that you interact with is interested. We cannot hide our light in that way, just in fear of judgment. And you are absolutely safe in a way if you're just sharing what you can see clear as day. As they say, clear as day. You're finding yourself so apparently, so clearly. There's no reason to be shy about that. You're not relying on some words, some second-hand knowledge. It's not shaky stuff. As clearly as you can say, I'm sitting down right now. If your children call you and say, what are you doing? oh, I'm just sitting in satsang. As clearly as you can say, I am sitting, you can say, I am. And you don't have to, the children asking what you're doing, you don't have to say, I am. But I'm saying it is that apparent to you now. Your truth, your being is that apparent to you.
Father,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
even with being a parent, sometimes the words are shaky. Sometimes.
Yes. That's all right, because maybe some condition, something is playing out, but you are on solid ground because you're speaking from your own inside. It is not an intellectual argument or a debate. It's not about right or wrong. It's like if you tell someone you're sitting down right now, what is the debate in that? Unless they are super Advaita and say all of this is Maya, how can you really say you are sitting in that? I'm sure you'll enjoy that conversation. So don't offer things to other people's minds for them to believe you. That is one more thing. Because if it comes from your heart, then the other is already received it in the heart. What the head reacts to it is neither here nor there. So don't wait for acceptance and, oh, thank you, thank you. It may be, shut up, I don't want to hear you. You take care of your own stuff first. It may be all of that. But if your heart is guiding you to not hide, just follow, it's okay.
Even if there's like shaking and nerves and anything can happen. But
Yes. In fact, when I started sharing satsang here, then I started sharing and I was in awe of what was coming out. I was like, what? So sharing, and I was not used to this instrument being used in this way. And something here was also listening like a Sangha member. So that's why I often say that I was my first Sangha member. I always wanted to be first in a Sangha, because you could get so close to the master and have conversations with him and just like talk to him anytime you wanted. So I always used to have this feeling in my heart that can I be like really close to a master? Because all the groups before Guruji I went to were very large. Even when I went to Art of Living and things, there were so many people, thousands now, of course, millions, but so many. So I always used to feel like, why can't I be like in the inner circle, close, like that. So then God's grace made me first in this Sangha. Okay, listen to this stuff first hand. Direct. So in a way, Ananta is my first Sangha member. But then, okay, answering your question, so I just felt like, so then I noticed after a few weeks of sharing like this, and then some of these kids were coming in, so after weeks, my mind would come, it would say, what are you going to say now? You've already said everything useful. Now today you'll make a fool of it. Yeah? So because it had lost most of its weight anyway, but it would still try to tempt me with this stuff. So it's natural. It's natural for the mind to try and stop this. Remember that as long as you're being true to your heart, as long as you're being true to your actual inside, you cannot really be shaken. in a way, what I'm saying is that in our life, in our relationships, we cannot be disingenuous. You cannot be disingenuous. You cannot be in the absence of integrity in relationships. I'm not saying all of you become my messengers and teachers, and I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying, share Satsang. You're the enlightened ones. I'm not saying any of that. I'm only saying that what kind of relationship would it be if you have to constantly hide your shine, your light? If you are finding this and you're valuing the presence of God and you're in a relationship where you have to just shy away from all of that and pretend as if you're somebody else, that is not a relationship of love. I'm not saying that you must force it down their throats. You see? I'm not saying you must force it down their throats. But you must not try to modify yourself to get acceptance from the world. That is why I'm saying that be prepared to face some heat, if not hate. You will get some heat for that because the world is attached to the mind. And if you're way of the heart, even if you don't say anything, they'll feel attacked. Okay? You just walk into a stressful meeting, I don't know if it happened, where you walk into a stressful meeting and you're just like, what? Yeah?
Take it seriously.
Yeah? Take it seriously. This kind of stuff. They feel attacked even if you're not hurting anyone or saying anything. And you have to accept that from the ego. Like when I was much younger, I hadn't even met Guruji then, and we used to just gather, some of us, in Cisco office, 6 o'clock. We would say, come. Then somebody ordering some chai and we were sitting, and I had always the most absurd questions for them. So I would say, how do you know all of this is not a dream? So we would just sit and contemplate like that. Like, how do we know this is not a dream? Or then people say, how can you trust that voice in your head? So one day we were just talking about this like this. One friend made fun of me and said, you have voices in your head, you need to get some help, I don't have voice in my head. Like this. But then one boy, he got really angry with me. You see? Got really angry with me because I hadn't told him anything. I was just talking to everyone. We were just talking in a friendly way. And we were just talking about this voice in the head and things like that. He's like, I don't know what you guys do every evening, 6 o'clock, and what rubbish is this, and what is all of this? You make no sense, and all. And I realized that you can be attacked, although I hadn't told him anything at all. You can be attacked because just in your way of being, if you're true to your heart in this way, the mind feels threatened. Now the usual approach is to say, no, let me change. Let me change to not really reflect the truth of what I am. Let me just put on an act. But that act is tiring. That act is tiring. If it feels naturally, yes, it's all fine. It's all good. But if you feel like you have to go into situations and you have to act, then that is not a fun way to live or a happy way to live. So at least this much we can risk. At least this much we can risk. Forget, we are not talking about the crucifixion. We're not talking about you being Abraham. Nothing. So this much we can risk. That we don't have to shadow our shine all the time and take that which the world considers to be true, to be so true for us. Effortlessly, as you come into environments, then some consciousness knows fully well how to play those roles. It's completely fine. But if you're noticing yourself more and more having to go into a shell forcefully, You don't have to hide that much. Because the mind will play like this. Guruji gave me such a beautiful name, and for like some time, for a few minutes, I was like, what will happen if I change my name on Facebook? No, from Tapan to Ananta. What will everyone say? Nobody said anything. They knew I'm crazy already. Not one said what is wrong with you. They knew. I know many of us face this kind of stuff. One thing is coming up to share about what he was saying earlier, that although it is a complete truth that one moment spent in God's presence wipes the slate clean, wipes the universe clean, but it's coming up to say that it has a validity, you see, validity, expiry date. This offer expires now. This offer expires now.
Starts also now.
Expires now. Cannot hold it for later. Now.
The now extends to eternity.
Yeah.
The now extends to eternity.
Yes, in reality, yes. But the offer to make this dip in the Ganga during Kumbh expires now. Actually, none of what I'm saying to you can be done later. cannot go to your heart later. You cannot meet God later. You can't hope to juggle a little bit of your head and a little bit of your heart and then fully immerse later. You can't keep something safe in your back pocket and say, I'm all empty now. Just like, wait, have some safety for later. It's full binary. It's all or nothing, and it's now or nothing. I'm not giving you a system so that you can apply it later. I'm pointing to you and I'm cooking like, what is that? What is the Japanese chef? They're cooking in the live counter. No? Teppanyaki or even sushi counter, they're making live. You know, like, oh, can you put this in a doggy bag? To eat it now. Best had fresh. Doggy. No, it's fresh before now. To be consumed before now. What's the best before date of all of this? Now. I'll follow God's will later. I'll look into my heart later. I have no time now. This is the time to save yourself. This is the time to save yourself. Save yourself from pride, specialness, guilt, suffering. God is in your heart. His presence is palpable. The truth is apparent to you. The way of faith is being made so clear to you. Now don't lose yourself in some triviality. No sacrifice in the outer world is being asked of you. Inwardly, you're being asked to make the ultimate sacrifice of your own will. Replace it with God's will. But what is being shared is not in opposition to anything at all. But don't allow your mind to trick you with time. Your mind will always say, it's time for God. Let me fix the world first, my world first. So it's unfortunate that Kabirji's very urgent call has become more of a reminder for homework. काल करे सो आज करे सो अब पल में बहुरी होगी पल में पढ़ले होगी बहुरी करेगा कब. It's a very urgent call to move to your heart. But it's become one Kabir ke dohe in school. But you are the fortunate or unfortunate ones. Because you now have no excuses. Dog can't eat your homework. You can't say, I don't know what God's will is. I don't know how to do this. It's been made as clear as possible to all of you. Now you have to jump with no safety. Bit worried.
No, it's like my head is white. Yeah.
That's my trademark move now. You're ready to move your house from head to heart, but you can't do it tomorrow. Any now confusion, doubt that the mind can use and say, I didn't do my homework because. You don't have to quit your jobs. You don't have to leave your families. You don't have to book a nice cave somewhere. All the tools are at your disposal. You have no excuse that myself is not apparent, that you're waiting for the darshan of something to come first before you can jump. You cannot say, I don't recognize my mind. You cannot say, I don't recognize the call of my heart. It has nothing to do with the mental notion of progression or maturing or ripening. That is for me to take care of. You have to jump. So one thing also in response to Peter is coming, which is that although it is true that you get a frequency of support or a vibrational support as you are in satsang, but For all of you, the way of the heart and the way of the head are completely recognizable now. So this support has helped you to recognize the two rivers flowing. And which one you want to swim is fully up to you. Live in complete obedience to God's will. And as contradictory as that idea may sound to your mind, that is your true freedom. और क्या? What time is it now? 8. She's making some Advaita stuff.
No, no.
That's why I'm saying that all this talk of crucifixion and all that can wait. What life gives us in front of us gives us enough opportunity to try and surrender.
I would have to ask for your help too, because these vices and addictions, it has gone by its own, but there is this habit to go to the mind first.
Yes, this is the main thing.
Yes.
This is what satsang is.
It's my vice almost. I would
That's
ask for your
the
help.
biggest addiction in the human condition.
Yeah.
Of course. The mind speaks first. It speaks first. So sometimes because it speaks first, you may feel like you go to it first. Just by thinking is not the mere appearance of thought. Thinking is not just the mere appearance of thought is not thinking. It is to take it to be your reality, to believe them, to identify with them as thinking.
Yes, and then when the second question, I never experienced not to have a me, or when you tell the story with the mirror, people say I can't see anybody in the mirror, I can't relate to it. It's the story with the cat.
Maybe it is already too natural for you. Do you experience a me? Do you experience the opposite, like you experience a me? Can you show me the me?
No.
You don't?
No.
It's already natural for you.
But I can smell the ego, as you say,
Yes.
when the person is coming.
And that is moment to moment for everyone. It's okay. Do you feel that you are limited when you check? Do you find any limitation?
No.
Do you feel like these body sensations contain you?
Yes, they remind me of the person.
Is it mostly that you think that you are contained within these sensations that we call the body?
No, but a little bit like if I would like to be freed of that.
Free, the appearance of these sensations will be there. See? But the idea that these sensations contain me, my being, myself, is only notional. It is not in the sensations by themselves.
But when I'm in satsang, I always have these strong nervous reactions. And
Right?
so nervous reaction of my nervous system.
Yes.
I have these movements.
Yes. Look around.
Yes,
It's
and
completely
this
fine.
reminds me then that I'm this body.
No, the body has these reactions. How does it make it you?
Nothing.
You're in a different field of energy when you come to satsang. So the body will have some movement like that. It's okay.
Yes, I don't bother about. I'm not.
The mind, of course, will tell you what's happening to you.